Welcome to Vale La Pena. In English, that's worth your while. I'm your host, Cynthia Ribas. This is a show where we get to do some grassroots philanthropy together. In all episodes, we'll feature nonprofit organizations engaged in inspiring projects for people, animals, and the environment. Some guests will be representatives of those organizations, and they'll share with us more about initiatives they're working on and ways we can participate. Check the show notes for opportunities to impact these humanitarian causes together. You can find this show through my website at www.rebuslegal.com and on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now, please join me for Vale La Pena. Hello, and welcome to Vale La Pena. So Vale La Pena in English means worth your while. And I am your show host, Cynthia Ribas. And for those of you who are new, we are a show committed to grassroots philanthropy. And how we do that is very simple. We have conversations with wonderful guests who are up to all kinds of interesting things. We talk about things that are worth our while. And we hope it'll be worth your while. And then what we aim to do here is provide opportunities for all of us to come together via causes that actually call to us and interest us so we can do some philanthropy together. And in the show notes, we always feature at least one nonprofit organization. And then we talk about ways that we can all participate, either classic donation or volunteering. So many ways that we can give and be a part of our communities, however it is that you define your community. And we'll give you today all kinds of opportunities from the local to the global. Today's theme is food insecurity or hunger, and we will go all over from there. And today's guest, I am so very delighted to share with you. She is the dearest of dear friends of mine. And she is an executive in IT software sales. She's a mother, she's a volunteer, she's so much more. And she is Heidi Howard. Let's bring her on.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I just so want to thank you for accepting my invitation to be a guest. We are friends, so we talk all the time. So what's different about this is that we're on a camera.
Yes.
But goodness knows we're normally up to something and talking about all kinds of things. And today we're looking into the question of food insecurity and what is that and what's going on there. Actually, hunger is on the rise globally for all kinds of different complicated reasons having to do with the pandemic and conflict. And it's a big topic, and you're actually doing something about it. So tell us a little bit about the organization you participate with.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. So the organization that I participate with is Food on Foot. And I became involved along with my husband and my teenage son about 5 years ago. And what Food on Foot is it is a nonprofit that assists the unhoused and low-income neighbors in the Hollywood and greater Los Angeles area. And how the program works is every Sunday, they provide food and clothing to the unhoused. But what makes them even more special is they also have a program in place that helps the unhoused get a fresh start through life skills training, finding full-time employment, and then also permanent housing. And what's really great is it's anywhere between within the Hollywood area. There's 20, we house 20 to 30 unhoused folks per year.
Wow. And how did you choose this organization?
So I chose this organization because I really, when my son was younger, maybe 12 or 13, I really wanted to give back. And we live in the Hollywood area. There's many unhoused people. And so I wanted to give back, and I wanted to choose something that was close to us. So when my son goes to school and all the people that he sees, I wanted to be in the community where we were helping the people that we see on a daily basis. So what's really neat about this program is, there's lots of programs that you can go ahead and financially donate to, which is a great thing, and we do. But I wanted to find something where we could really be on the ground and experience. And what I love about this is there's a Sunday, every single Sunday, there's a Sunday serving, so we can go and volunteer. So I chose that, and it's a really interesting. And I also really love the story of the founder. So the founder of Food on Foot is Jay Goldinger, and what he did, it was back in I believe 1996. He started serving chicken out of the back of his car to
Wow.
the unhoused, to homeless, and that was really what, his contribution. So this was in 1996, and he started doing this out of a back parking lot behind the post office, and he realized that the food, really wasn't enough. It wasn't the answer to homelessness. And there's a lot of underlying factors that cause the homeless epidemic, lack of confidence, support, resources, community. So what he did was in 1999, Jay created this job and housing program. And this is really designed to help people experiencing homelessness, high functioning people, to really regain their footing, come back into society, be able to have full-time jobs, permanent housing, to learn life skills and really build confidence. So he put this program in place, and it's been in place since 1999.
Wow. Well, and you've touched on some of it. And for the listeners, in the show notes, we're going to be sure to put the link to Food on Foot. There's that phrase of food for thought. I always want to say food for thought. That's not what we're talking about. Food on Foot. And I saw that you can go online and you can sign up for the Sunday meal deliveries that you talked about. They're booked all through April. Like the next openings are in May. So you
Yes.
can get yourself signed up for that. And I also saw that you can participate in so many other ways with them. Like if you have a truck or a SUV and you might help deliver items, it could be food or other things. You also, if you want to get involved in the job readiness, you could give a workshop on resume preparation, or if you cut hair, you can do that. There's so many ways that they are making resources available to people. It's such a big issue here in Los Angeles. So tell us, why volunteer in the first place? What has you do this? I know you're busy. It's not like you don't have a million other things going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, and just to touch back on what you were saying for the people watching, if you want to look, it's foodonfoot.org. And as Cynthia said, there's Sunday servings, but they do fill up. And there's also, they have the $98 club where you can donate. But it's a great opportunity to go on Sundays and bring your friends and family, and then just meet everybody in the program. There's the 200 or 250 unhoused folks that we distribute clothes and hand out food, but then there's also all the folks that are currently in the program. So they volunteer by going to the Hollywood market and cleaning that up. And then once they get into the actual, program, they go through that. And I mentioned that they get permanent housing, full-time jobs, and then they're not able to graduate from the program until they save up $5,000 for emergencies. So
Wow.
yeah, really, really, just wonderful program. But then you get to meet all the folks. So the graduates of the program. So the graduates of the program come back and volunteer, and it's so inspiring to hear their stories. So now we'll go back to your question. Why volunteer in the first place? So for me, I wanted to give back, but also I really wanted to give the opportunity for my teenage son to know what it is to give freely. So we give a lot to our family, our friends, but outside people that we don't know. And oftentimes, we can separate ourselves and see ourselves as different, and the homeless unhoused problems over here. And I really wanted him to be able to have the experience of being able to, on a personal level, get to know these people. And the other key takeaway is, I feel like we all get so busy in our lives. We all have a million excuses, and we're so busy, and we have our stresses and our worries and our concerns. And there is something that transforms when one steps away from self and goes and gives to another. And what that provides, the level of empathy, compassion, when you get out of your own way and you have a completely different perspective, and really just choosing love. We have choices every day. Every day we wake up. Am I going to be in fear? Am I going to be in love? And I choose love. And part of my love is giving to my community and bringing along my son.
And as far as bringing family, I also saw that you can bring kids as young as 6 years old to be part of this.
Yes, there's kids. Yep, I think six is the youngest, and we see elementary school kids, middle school, high school, and it's just a great opportunity. And then if you become a member and you go on a regular basis, you start to know these folks. And one of my favorite things is my son will come home and be like, oh, I just saw so and so down on the boulevard, and just recently he came home and he said, oh, I saw so and so on the bus coming home from school. So just really that connection, and getting that we are so much more alike and connected, and what we can do to pull together and be able to give the confidence and the support so these people can rise above their current circumstance.
Well, and I'm a lawyer, and my life is a dedication to justice, and I have a very broad take on what justice actually includes, and the aim is that it is not just ICE, right? I don't know who gets credit for that. I heard it in a Joni Mitchell song the first time, and I was like, oh, yeah. But also, the Martin Luther King quote about an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so I think in helping to do something to for your neighbors, it gets you in touch with your humanity, the call for service. Mm-hmm. And for those of you listening who may not be in LA, we're also going to feature Feeding America in the show notes. You can go on there. They feed, and you will find food banks all over the U.S. And for those of you wishing to contribute more globally, you might be listening from outside the US of A, or you want to be you're in the US of A, but you want to give more globally. Though, let's just make sure I get the name of the organization correctly here. Yeah, it's the the World Central Kitchen. And they actually have been providing meals for people in Turkey and Syria as a function of the two hideous earthquakes that the people have suffered through, and tens of thousands of people have died. Um, and they also give meals to people in Ukraine, all the displacement that the war has caused now going on for over a year. So they're also another organization engaged in providing food. And just a little bit of the study I've done on it, and of course I'm no expert on this, but in the US, food insecurity is very much an economic issue. And so while there are plenty of food banks and programs that the government provides that you may be able to qualify for, there are plenty of people that make just enough to where they actually don't qualify for the government programs. So then they're in this situation of having income and having to make choices between, do I buy medicine or do I buy food? I mean, it's just kind of unbelievable what some of us are dealing with on the planet, and here in the US of A, and bringing it back to LA and Hollywood in particular. What all can we do? Well, you've shared some memorable moments. Any other memorable moments with Food on Foot you might like to share?
Yeah, I mean, again, just going back to the people and the graduates. And there's one woman in particular. I'll just use her for first name only, Morgan. But I've gotten to know her, and her story. She came to LA and really just fell on hard times. And I feel like we have can have these preconceived ideas of why people end up, unhoused, and there can be judgment. And when you are interacting and get to know these people on a personal level. So what stands out with Morgan is she is just the most positive, charismatic, shared her story, found Food on Foot, has been housed now, working full time. And then she takes the bus and makes sure that every Sunday that she's at a Sunday serving, because of the difference that she can make in her share. So here she is working, has all, she's through it, but she still spends her day off, taking the bus, going to Food on Foot, serving, and sharing her story. And one of the most impactful things that she just said, Food on Foot has just, helped her and feel like part of society once again.
Wow. Which is so critical. I mean, this little podcast of mine is a big dream come true, and I have big goals for it. But one of them is exactly that feeling you talked about, feeling a part of something, enabling people to connect. We have such an issue also with isolationism in the US of A in particular. People are so very isolated. We tend to not know our neighbors. And we need to connect. The pandemic also exacerbated that phenomenon. It's had all kinds of ripple effects in terms of depression rates and suicides, particularly in the teen years. So we need to get out and connect and be with each other and be part of society, like your sharing was made possible for Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Okay, and then let's just see. You've talked so much about how it has changed you. Anything more on that?
Yeah, as far as it's changed me, I mean, just that softening, as you mentioned, we've all been isolate, there's been a lot of isolation with COVID, and then, feelings of fear. And then just around, where I live, the, unhoused is doubled, tripled. And I just have such a softer spot in my heart, just being so coming from a place of compassion and um, you don't know people's circumstances, and to come from a place of love and compassion, and it's yeah, humility.
Yeah. Well, the issue of homelessness in Los Angeles, yes, it's so very complicated. And when people look at it, there's so many factors. There are, in terms of what leads to it, it can, so when we look at some of the solutions, it's important to talk with like the VA, the vets, what's going on with, how we care for our soldiers when they come back, or not, all those issues. And then there's all kinds of mental health issues. And then there are just the reality of the economics. And of course, we have inflation moving, still a little more than we would like it to be. So the cost of living uh, continues to be ever more difficult. I mean, in LA generally, even purchasing a home, it's mostly a community of renters more than homeowners. But even finding affordable housing is complicated. Um, so whatever we can do, I love how Food on Foot also has meals, which are such, a fundamental human right. At least we all, can't really be thinking about much else if you haven't had a chance to have a meal, have some nourishment. Um, but they do also provide so much else in terms of seeing the person as a whole, and what all of our, we have many needs. Um, and the brain share, having people provide assistance so that folks can um, work to gain some stability somewhere and some shelter that they can count on, a place to call home.
Yes, yes, yeah. And in addition to training, they've also during COVID they ran the entire time through COVID. They did not miss a Sunday.
Wow.
They didn't have volunteers come for the Sunday serving, but everybody that employees of Food on Foot, they did not miss a serving. And then also there was medical staff that volunteered their time and handed out all sorts of different supplies during COVID. Um, yeah.
Right. I mean, you guys are, these are real heroes,
Yep.
right? People that
Yep.
were right in the middle of the pandemic when we barely knew what was going on, and they're still figuring out how to get food to the vulnerable populations. And even with all the social distancing and the masking and everything else, no, it's really the whole team there. And to you, Heidi, you guys are heroes. And I am grateful to you for what you're doing as a volunteer. And the light that you shine and what you make possible for your family and for your community. um, okay, speaking of shining lights, I know you have big hero. I want to make sure we get a chance to mention him, Viktor Frankl. So talk to me a little bit about who he is for you.
Who Viktor Frankl is. So he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And I think I've read that book probably 5 times. The first time I read it was in college, quite some time ago. So he's Austrian. He was in a Nazi prison camp. He lost his parents. He lost all sorts of friends. And it was really the first part of the book is all about his experience, and then it's about his logotherapy, which what was really meaningful for me, and what I got is, no matter what happens to you, where whatever your circumstances are, if you have something else that you're living for, and you have a greater, bigger purpose, and you can take a moment between what happens and your reaction. There's an actual space, and I know a lot of folks probably with meditation and breathing exercises and whatever yours is, but it's about, creating that space to see, I have a choice in the matter between the stimulus and the response. I have a choice. And Viktor Frankl, and one of the things that he saw in the camp is it wasn't the most, fittest, strongest of the folks that survived. It was the ones that mentally had something bigger, a bigger purpose. And his purpose was to go and, write about logotherapies, his finding. And so for me, learning that as a young person, that I do have a choice in the matter. I'm not my circumstances, and there is that space to take a moment and choose how I want to be. And as I said, I choose love.
Yeah, no, Viktor Frankl's story is so inspiring, and he, he tried to imagine what he went through, and then, these takeaways that he was able to find meeting even in a concentration camp, and he found it through his purpose, right? He had to finish his manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
He also gives us other ways, like in the presence of another human being, there's purpose. And then he also talks about in your ability to accept unavoidable suffering. Because all of us know the full spectrum of life, and and then there are those of us dealing with more or less challenges, and we need to be here for each other. We really are a communal species. When they do these studies about happiness, right? Denmark's always winning the awards, and one of the things that they attribute that to is so many people in Denmark have living arrangements. These communities, they're in complexes where there are the elderly and babies, and people have a lot of communal social interaction. Well, okay, and then you touched on some mindfulness practices, breathing. So is there anything more you want to say about that? I know you have depth in that as well.
Yeah, so I think that anything, it's different for each person. But whatever a person can find that gives them that space to quiet the mind and have everything slow down, where you can, not be so attached. We can get so attached, and we're so close up sometimes that we can't see. So anything that allows that space and clarity. So I have practiced yoga for years. Kundalini is one of my favorites. I also do a Buddhist meditation. And then I've done I've learned and worked with breath and done breath exercises. There is a Art of Living, Shri Shri, wonderful breath exercises. But even taking, whether it's a minute or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, just to ground yourself, whether it's through moving your body or stretching, that creates that space. And in that space, when you actually are able to choose rather than just to have a knee-jerk reaction, and especially as so many of us can feel so compressed at this time, it's just wonderful to have those practices and play with them.
Absolutely. There's our inner work we need to do, and then there's making sure that somehow we also connect with our our communities, our families, our communities, the world. I wanted to say some other things about like the WCK, the World Central Kitchen. You can actually go online there and buy a cookbook. They have all kinds of like world famous chefs that contribute these healthy meal recipes. And that's something you can do that would also be a donation to the frontline work that they're doing in terms of delivering meals. Okay, well, I know you're really busy and this is sort of a short show. It's a huge topic. We could go on forever, but is there anything more you wanted to say that you haven't had a chance to say yet?
Oh, thank you, Cynthia.
Well, and again, you're a hero. You are a hero for the world, Heidi. So grateful for the work you're doing and for who you are for humanity. And thank you so much for being on the show. To the listeners, I hope it has been worth your while to listen to all kinds of ways that you can participate. We will make sure to link all of the organizations we mentioned. And I thank you all for your time today, for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to Vale La Pena. Please join us in making an impact together for people, animals, and the environment. Details in the show notes. You can find this show through my website at www.ribaslegal.com and on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. I'm your host, Cynthia Ribas, and I welcome and thank you for your feedback, comments, questions, and sharing this show with others.